All right, welcome back, everyone. Get ready because today we are breaking down an absolutely wild survival experiment. Imagine being stranded on a remote island. Okay, now imagine doing it while physically handcuffed to another person for 24 hours straight. Yeah, that's exactly the absurd premise we're unpacking in today's explainer. It all started with a simple, yet totally chaotic dare. The creator, Sarthak, was peacefully asleep when he got a message from his tall friend, Mythpot. The dare? To recreate a grueling handcuff challenge, but this time completely isolated on an island with his female challenge partner. No escape, no personal space, and absolutely no use of his dominant hand. Okay, let's dive into this. Seriously, how do you survive a 5-star vacation when you only have one free hand? Because the reality of this challenge presents an absolutely hilarious contrast. You see, they didn't just get dropped off on some barren rock in the middle of nowhere. No, they were taken to one of India's most luxurious 5-star island resorts. The irony here is just so thick. You got this incredible paradise literally at your fingertips, but you only have half your body available to actually enjoy it. It completely rewrites the rules of a luxury vacation when you can't even open a door or, hold a glass of water without coordinating with the person physically tethered to your wrist. So, you might be wondering, why on earth put yourselves through this again? Well, because the stakes were incredibly high. The previous handcuff stunt totally exploded, crossing a massive 10 million views. 10 million. And, when you hit numbers like that, audience expectations just go right through the roof. You can't just repeat the exact same stunt. You've got to significantly up the ante. Moving this physical restriction from a normal environment to a remote island setting, well, that was their way of taking a proven, highly successful concept and cranking the difficulty dial all the way up to an 11. Section 1. Luxury Resort, Restrictive Reality. Right from the start, their arrivals set this incredibly deceptive tone. After a long boat ride, they step off onto what Sarthak jokingly wondered might be Ambani Island 2.0, just because of how wealthy and pristine the whole place looked. They were greeted with these premium VIP golf cart services to zip them through the shade, eventually arriving at this highly fancy ocean view room peculiarly named Halibut, which, literally came complete with thin decorations on the walls. But that facade of luxury crumbles instantly when faced with their restrictive reality. On one side, you have massive resort pools and stunning blue ocean views. But on the flip side, you have the inescapable facts. One hand is permanently tied, there is absolutely zero privacy, and you're forced into a shared physical space. Literally, Sarthak couldn't even raise his arms naturally to stretch without yanking his partner's arm. All those 5-star perks mean absolutely nothing when you're effectively functioning as a 3-legged, 2-armed hybrid human. And hey, if the handcuffs weren't enough of a problem, there is this whole underlying layer of danger. When they spoke to the resort receptionist, he casually drops this ominous warning. He says, "You can spot reptiles and snakes once you go to this jungle area." No way, right? Suddenly, this pristine luxury resort has a wild, unpredictable edge to it. It wasn't just an amusement park, it's an active jungle environment. Navigating around venomous snakes is hard enough on a good day, but trying to do it while tied to someone who might panic and sprint in the exact opposite direction, that is just a recipe for absolute disaster. Section 2. Struggling with basic needs. As the afternoon rolled in, that initial excitement completely wore off, and the harsh reality of their island confinement began to hit them incredibly hard. Now, what's really interesting about the situation is how quickly the most basic human functions become a cascade of insurmountable obstacles when you lose your autonomy. First up, the washroom. How do you figure out bathroom breaks when you literally can't close the door on the person tied to you? Yeah, that resulted in massive awkwardness. Then Sarthak had to figure out how to eat using only his left hand, his non-dominant hand, which he utterly failed at. When he actually went looking for food in the jungle, he had to dodge these massive red spiders near a temple. And honestly, my personal favorite struggle, hygiene. Covered in beach salt and sweat, they couldn't figure out how to use a standard shower while handcuffed, so they literally just jumped into the resort swimming pool, fully clothed, just to wash themselves off. Section 3. Finding connections and food. Now, while physical survival was becoming a major struggle, the source material briefly pivots to explore a vastly different and much easier kind of connection, the dating app Happen. It's a fascinating juxtaposition, really. On the one hand, you have two people physically forced together, really struggling to coexist. On the other hand, you have digital technology designed to effortlessly connect people. As the process goes, the app works in 3 really simple steps. First, it connects you with people you've already crossed paths with in real life. Next, it allows you to send a like. And finally, it uses a mapped interface to provide location-based date suggestions, like local cafes.
It just goes to neutrally highlight how incredibly easy digital location-based connections are compared to the absolute physical nightmare of being handcuffed in the jungle. Returning to that physical nightmare, Sarthak was given a secondary challenge by his partner. She basically told him he had to forage for his own food in the jungle before she would help him eat. This led to a completely desperate hunt for survival. I mean, he found wild berries on a tree, but very quickly realized they were covered in spider webs and absolutely swarming with ants, making them potentially poisonous. Sweating and completely exhausted, they eventually found a sign pointing to a temple trail. Hiking up there, they managed to find a temple where they were basically saved by prashad, which were offerings of apples and bananas. Let me tell you, it was a massive relief after hours of just walking around under the hot sun.
Section 4. Surviving the night.
But finding an apple only gets you so far. As the sun set, the novelty and the fun completely evaporated, replaced by just sheer, undeniable exhaustion. Chronologically mapping their day reveals a really steep decline in their comfort levels. Think about it. In the afternoon, they were miserable, itchy, and salty from the ocean breeze. By evening, they had resorted to that desperate, fully clothed pool shower, which meant they now had wet clothes to deal with. At night, because Sarthak's partner took the bed, he was forced to sleep awkwardly on the hard floor, with his arm literally suspended in the air by the handcuff. And by morning, the physical constraints had taken a severe toll. Sarthak woke up with scraped wrists and hands so numb he couldn't even feel them.
Despite the numbness and the constant pulling on his wrist every single time his partner moved in her sleep, Sarthak maintained this hilarious but ironclad resolve. Lying here on the floor in the pitch dark, he declared, "Whether the earth turns upside down or Born Vita gets banned, I am not giving up." It's just a wonderfully specific, cultural way to say that absolutely nothing, not an apocalypse, not even the loss of his favorite childhood chocolate drink, was going to make him surrender this challenge to his friend Mythpot.
Section 5. The final makeover test.
And this brilliantly illustrates the morning climax. Morning finally broke, but just as Sarthak thought the worst was over, his phone rang. It was the mastermind himself, Mythpat, throwing a massive morning curveball. Surviving the island just wasn't enough. To make his life even more difficult for those final remaining hours, Sarthak was ordered to complete the challenge wearing full facial makeup, completely transforming into a female alter ego named Mathila or Sarthaka. So handcuffed, exhausted, and totally bewildered, he just had to sit there while his partner applied layers and layers of makeup to his face. However, the makeup ended up being the absolute least of his problems. That morning, having survived the agonizing night, Sarthak decided to treat himself to a massive, luxurious resort breakfast. He was eating, in his own words, like a mad bull, absolutely devouring everything in sight after a full day of basically starving. But very quickly, the weather inside his stomach began to deteriorate. A massive breakfast is great, but the disastrous, uncontrollable upset stomach that follows, that is a nightmare, especially when you are handcuffed. Sarthak had to rush to the washroom, requiring his partner to awkwardly stand right there, just outside the open door, tethered to him while he dealt with his, crisis. It was pretty much the absolute peak of losing all personal dignity. So the crucial point is really captured in this final reflection. As those long 24 hours finally came to a close, Sarthak realized something genuinely profound. He noted, this wasn't just tied hands. It was a test of patience. It was a test of understanding. Every single minor task they did required negotiation. They fought, they struggled, but they also found genuine humor in the pure absurdity of their situation. What started out as a chaotic, silly YouTube dare transformed into a surprisingly deep social experiment about human tolerance and cooperation under extremely uncomfortable constraints. Which leaves us with a final, provocative thought to consider. Could you survive 24 hours tied to someone else, or would your patience run out first? It's really easy to laugh at the awkward washroom moments and the struggle to eat with a left hand, but the mental endurance required to just surrender your physical freedom to another person is staggering. Think about who you would choose to be tied to and how long you would actually last. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the limits of your own patience, and I'll catch you next time.